All right, ladies and gentlemen, today we have a very special guest coming to us from Paul VI Catholic High School, where he was a number 65 overall recruit, two-time captain, and first-team All-Met. He took his talents to College Park, and in just 2.5 years with the Terps, he's earned 2 Big Ten Defensive Player of the Week honors and was named 2019 Inside Lacrosse All-American honorable mention. But most importantly, he's got a couple of years left. Roman Puglise, welcome to Open Up.
Thanks, Adam. I'm so happy to be here. Happy to be a part of this great organization and what you guys are trying to accomplish, and just happy and excited to share my story.
I mean, the pleasure is all on this side of the Zoom. Me and you played together in high school, and we had the privilege of knowing a pretty special dude, Gus Lee. For those, the viewers probably don't know much about him. Just can you tell us a little bit about Gus? Because I know you were really close with him, and I mean, he was an awesome dude. So go ahead and tell him whatever.
Yeah, so I first met Gus in 8th grade. We joined the same club lacrosse team, and our relationship kind of grew. He was a shy kid, but he always had a very bubbly personality once you got to know him. And fortunate enough for the both of us, he decided to transfer to Paul VI going into his junior year. So you had 1 year with him, I had 2 years with him, and we really became best friends. He was just a happy-go-lucky dude. When you got to know him, he just developed such a deep-rooted relationship with others. And he loved to just like put a smile on someone's face, jump into conversations that he wasn't a part of, and just blurt in funny things. And he was a people person, and that's really what separated him. But he also was a tremendous athlete on the field. But as you know, Adam knows, and other people have probably heard his story. He suffered from depression and anxiety from a very young age. But no one really knew about it, and he concealed it very, very well, because you would have never known by the way he smiled and the way he acted that he suffered from such a deep mental health that unfortunately ended up taking his life. So he was a kid that you wanted to be around. He pushed you to be a better person and a better athlete. And I think it really stemmed from the fact that he was struggling so much that he didn't want other people to struggle. So his way of coping with his struggles was to give back to others and to try to help them. But unfortunately, at some point, it kind of just overtook him, and he took his life, which was really sad. As a student athlete at the University of Richmond, it really raised awareness for many campuses. I myself got involved in mental health heavily after that, serving at school as a student athlete mental health mentor, trying to share his story, share the ideas about mental health, and kind of run with it to live out his legacy and honor him. And so many other former athletes, the University of Richmond football team, and so many other schools have done the exact same thing, just trying to bring awareness because it is such a big issue that a lot of athletes suffer with.
I mean, you had 2 years of knowing him. In just 1 year, this guy had such an impact on my life. Like, you look from the outside looking in, you think that's the happiest man on the planet. And that's part of the issue with mental health is it's hard to look from the outside and diagnose any mental health issues with anybody, especially like an athlete as successful as Gus. So let's move on to the next question. What does mental health mean to Roman Pugliese?
Losing my best friend really just completely changed my perspective on mental health. Like most athletes, like you Adam, we grew up and we hear the mantra, you don't need to cry, rub some dirt on it, you're stronger than you think. No one really, in our day and age growing up, put a focus on mental health. It was always, you're fine, you're going to get over it. Like, something happened, you're fine. And to not talk about it, to just cover it up. And I think that was kind of still my perception on, struggles. You just put it in a box and you deal with it internally. But as, losing my best friend and one of my best friends and seeing the impact that it had on my life, my idea of mental health has changed tremendously. The way I view mental health, it can be as small as getting nervous for an exam or nervous for a game, and as big as, being suicidal or depressed. And that's really what it comes down to. Everyone has a bout with mental health. It doesn't have to be on a daily basis like Gus's was, but you're going to have a bout. Anxiety for an exam, that's mental health. Anxiety or stress, that's a mental health issue. So It's not just, being depressed, being suicidal. There's ways to deal with simple stress about work, about athletics, about school, whatever it may be. That's a mental health issue. And I myself, I never looked at it like that before I really got involved in the mental health community, really dove into what it was, and found myself, more and more on a daily basis struggling with some of those same things. I was embarrassed, to have mental health issues, to be embarrassed and nervous for games, to do bad in school. But at the end of the day, it doesn't define you. What really defines you and shows your courage is how you handle it. And I think that's kind of how, mental health has been impacted on me now, obviously in a large way, but how I can teach others about it.
You brought up a good point in that how you handle it really defines you. When you're having a bad day, whether it's a bad game, practice, class, just a stressful day, is there somebody that you like to turn to just talk about things?
Yeah, I mean, so I'll start by saying, I really had probably my hardest semester, being this fall. I was struggling, a lot with my mental health actually, and I think it all kind of stemmed from, losing Gus, and I was back in a familiar place where I found out about it and brought up a lot of memories. But I was really embarrassed, and I went to my trainer, who's probably the one guy that I talked to the most about Gus, about mental health, and he's probably the dude I rely on the most, to answer that simple question. But I went to him, and he immediately he said it was time, and I was like, "What are you talking about?" And he said, "It's time that you go see our sports psychologist." And being an athlete, you don't want to go. You think it's like a crime to go see a psychologist, a counselor. Like, you think you're too tough for that. And I gave in to him. I was struggling that much. There was days where I was just so sad and down in the dumps. I didn't know what was going on. And I knew, like, I've never been one to suffer from depression or anything. So it was out of the ordinary. And so I went to her, and I started meeting with her on a weekly basis, and it changed my entire perception of how I deal with certain things. Every single week I went in there to, I developed a relationship with her, but at first it was just a random person, and I went in there, and she's got a magical way of pulling out everything that needs to be pulled out of you. And, I left there, not knowing what I said, but having spilled my whole life story and everything going on in my life to someone who I'd met with 5 times in my life. So, it really brought me joy, and it brought me comfort, and it just gave me so many tips to be able to, deal with losing such a close friend, um, having the stresses of being in a leadership position, being a first time captain at a top 5 lacrosse school in the country, having to deal with, you know, 50 different personalities on a team, having to deal with my coaches more than I ever had. There were so many things that came at me at once, and just reaching out for help really allowed me to just take a deep breath. Every single week, I learned a little more. I learned some tips. I learned how to, if something comes, how to just do some breathing techniques to just calm myself down and then face it. And I learned to rely on other people. You know, I I'm so fortunate for the 2 trainers that we have, that I have such a great relationship with them. And my one trainer, he's one of the first people that I told that I lost Gus. So we have that bond. And whenever I really need something, I really go to him, because it's such a close relationship. And he's not just there to fix your ankle when it's hurt, or fix your shoulder when you tweak it. He's someone that wants to develop a relationship and is there for the whole person. And if he can help you in any way, that's what he does. So that's probably the guy that I lean on the most. Other than that, it's just family. Um, you know, my brother is probably my best friend, and um, if I have a rough day, a rough practice, he was a student athlete too, so he understands that. I call him, and then people like you, Bakes, people that knew Gus and were good friends with him, that struggle the same way with losing someone to suicide. Um, you rely on them because they understand what you're going through, and they understand the mental health side of things more than maybe someone who hasn't necessarily been in either had mental health issues or had to experience individuals with mental health.
Yeah. I think it's really good for our listeners to hear that you go to your trainer. Sometimes you think you got to go to your coach, you got to go to your teammates, you got to go to your parents. Like there's a list of names that people usually think when I ask that question. But I think it was really cool for you to say your trainer, and even seeing a sports psychologist. Like a lot of people, they think they're too tough to do that, especially athletes, high school athletes as well. You're one of like the baddest dudes I knew on the lacrosse field. So for you to say that, like it really just like lights me up a little bit. But my last question for you, just to wrap this up, what is some advice you would give to any high school or middle school athlete who's struggling with his or her mental health?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing is that stigma's got to end, that you're too cool to ask for help, that you have to bottle it up, that you have to be tough. Like I mentioned before to you, that's how we were raised. But that's not how it needs to be. You see guys like Kevin Love coming out now, discussing his mental health. So many professional athletes have come out and talked about their bouts with depression and suicide. And, it's really encouraging to myself, having lost Gus to suicide, and for me not really, hearing stories about it, people losing, like taking their lives because they're depressed or because of this or that. But until it really impacts you, you never really think that someone you love is going to be in that position. So selfishly and somewhat being ignorant, you kind of just push it to the side, and you don't really take a vested interest in it. So for myself, the advice I give and what I preach now, it's okay to be vulnerable. When I lost Gus, there's actually an article out from the Washington Post where I talk about it, and I was crying to my coaches who wants to cry to their coach over something. Like I was going to my coach's office months after Gus, and on the field there'd be times when like I would step off the field or we'd have a game and I would just lose it because like certain memories pop up, and it shouldn't be embarrassing. And I think that's what I really struggle with now, is that people are so embarrassed to show their emotions. But like I said earlier, it takes courage to show your emotions. It takes courage to step out and to be vulnerable. That's more courageous than bottling it up and letting it eat at you. That's the courageous part, is that you step out, you put yourself out there for help, and you let someone help you. Kids in high school, we think we have all the answers. Even in college, there's times when I think I have all the answers, but I have to lean back on my coaches and my teammates when I'm not doing well in lacrosse. I have to lean on my tutors and my academic advisors and my teachers when I'm not doing well in school. So who do you lean on when you're not doing well in your personal well-being, like your health life? If you're sick, you go to the doctor. If you break your ankle, you go to the orthopedic surgeon. If you're stressed and depressed, why, like, who are you going to? Are you just going to bottle it up? It makes no sense. It's a part of your health. The biggest advice I can give is it's courage to be vulnerable. It's courage to step out. It's courage to take a leap of faith. And the more you do that, the more you'll realize how beneficial it is to yourself. Because personally, I finally did that this fall, and, it changed. I wouldn't say it changed my life, but it changed my perception of mental health. It changed the way that I deal with stress. I deal with anxiety. And I'm not saying I have a lot of it, but there's weeks when you have 5 exams in 1 week, and you have to go to practice every single day, and you have to, still be sharp in everything that you do. So yeah, there is times when you get really stressed and you're anxious about certain things, but when you can step out and you learn tools to manage that, you rely on other people. That's what separates you from being a great person, a great student, a great athlete. And I think you see people like LeBron James, who has a mental health coach, and he's arguably one of the best athletes in the world. And he goes to a coach to coach himself on situations where he needs help in, and he's not afraid to do it. And there's videos of him doing breathing techniques on the sideline of games. There's a famous video of him doing it in Game 7 of one of the finals with like 2 minutes left. He's sitting on the sideline doing a breathing technique, calming his nerves, going into probably two of the biggest minutes of his life. So there's always someone there that can help you. And don't just think of it as, anxiety or depression. There's, our sports psychologists at school, they coach you on how to deal with some of the nerves that come with being an athlete and being in big games and the butterflies you get and how to manage that. That all falls under, mental health. So seeking help, if you're struggling with mental health, I encourage you to, if you're not comfortable talking to someone, talk to your parents first. And if that's not enough, then they can refer you to other individuals. But take that leap of faith and don't be embarrassed because of it. You'll be courageous, and it'll show to other people because, I wish there was more I could do to help Gus. And if I had known about it, I would have encouraged him to take a leap of faith and to go see someone. And unfortunately, we didn't know much about it, but if you're struggling with it, be courageous. And the courageous thing to do is to seek help.
Roman, dude, that was awesome. Not only thank you for what you're doing for the mental health community. I know Gus is looking down, smiling, because you're really impacting a lot of people. And also, thank you coming on to open up, man. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Bakes. I'm so happy to be here to support everything you're doing with the organization. Thank you for your commitment to mental health, for doing this vlog with so many different athletes, and just picking people's brains. It means a lot to me personally, losing a close friend and being able to live out his legacy through trying to help others and impact others so people don't suffer like him. So I thank you so much for having me on here. I wish you the best of luck this year at Jacksonville. Hope to see you stopping some shots. And if we get the chance to play, you better know I'm putting one in on you.